What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Straight Across the Border. My name is Max. I'm here with Chris. And today we have on our assistant coach, Fred Van Vliet lookalike, Coach Long.
Mister, what's up, buddy?
What's up, man?
Oh, it's like for like speaking better and shit?
No.
So why'd you say for the podcast?
Bacon's not real, and neither are now.
No, bacon's not real, because if you go to a grocery store, there's too much bacon.
Keep working, your time will come.
Shit. It sounds like you're eating human bone.
It's a mini.
It sounds like you're eating hamster bone.
It might be stupid, but is India in the Middle East? I don't think so. Is it? But before we get into the episode, make sure to follow us on Instagram at SATB_pod and on TikTok at Shipped Across the Border. And let's get into the episode. So, where are you from, Coach Long?
I'm actually from Buffalo. I grew up about 15 minutes from here. Went to high school about 10 minutes away. So,
Which school?
Kenmore West. Kenmore West Blue Devils. Shout out to them. But yeah, man, kind of raised in Buffalo. I was born in Philadelphia, but wasn't really alive long enough to reap those benefits. Moved here when I was about 4. So
Those benefits being you get to be an Eagles fan?
yes,
Okay.
that exactly.
Is that why you claim the Eagles?
Yeah, for sure. It was one of the first football games I ever watched, man.
That's sick. Thinking of like before, when we were like thinking of questions, like we realized, like I kind of realized like we know very little about like your life outside of like outside of basketball, outside of like.
Especially compared to Coach Hack. Like, I know he was in the Navy. I know he went overseas and all this stuff, but I haven't heard anything about your basketball career, any of this stuff.
Kind of like a mystery figure, so we're going to definitely unpack a lot of that stuff. So I heard, I don't actually know this for a fact, we put it on the sheet and you asked me about it, but I heard that you played football in high school.
I did play high school football. I didn't play too much, but I played football, basketball, and track.
What events in track did you run?
I did the long jump, high jump, triple jump, and 4x1.
What is 4x1?
4x100 meter.
Yeah, so it's a relay race that everybody runs one leg of the track, which is 400 meters.
Do you remember what your 100 meter time was?
No. I never, so the only times that I have of that are kind of just split. So like I never ran like just 100 meters. Like
Yeah. Also like the short is different, or the straightaway is different from the curve.
Yeah, so like usually like there's some kind of, if you're a coach, some skill to where you put guys. And I was on the third leg, and usually what they say is that the third leg is the fastest.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But they're not real splits. But the fastest split that I had was probably like an 11. I think it was like an 11.5.
That's really
quick.
very good.
Pretty quick.
I ran.
But that could be 96 yards.
I ran the 100 meter, 200 meter, at some points 400 meter, and that could depend on the relay, depending on what we needed in high school. Because I only ran track for my senior year, because like it went to a small school, they just needed some guys. And actually, I really, really enjoyed it, because like whatever senior season ended, kind of like that like come off of like whatever, we had a really good team, it was a really fun season, and now it's like I'm done high school basketball. Now I'm committed to come here to play, but it's kind of like that block of time where it's just like nothing. So it kind of just filled that like competitive void. I really enjoyed that.
No, for sure. It was just hard for me. So I used to run more events, but my knee started to get bad, and the only thing that I can kind of do was jump still. I had a lot of
track events are long as hell, dude.
Yeah, and I wasn't really up for being a sprinter, so called, and running 2 miles.
Yeah,
back when I was 16, I was like, this just has no correlation to what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Trying to just jump and run 100 meters, not 2 miles.
High jump's hard. I tried a bunch of different stuff. I tried have you done hurdles?
No, I was a bit too short for the hurdles.
Because I ran my first ever time running a 400 meter. I ran a 56 or 54 in like KDs, and like it was windy outside. I'm like, hey, so I think I could potentially do this. But then if I could, because I'm tall and like kind of lanky, my coach is like, well, if we put you in hurdles, if you could run a solid 400 meter, and if you run a 400 meter hurdles, and you could kill in it, but I just couldn't get the hurdle down. Like that's just the technique. Do you ever run track?
I ran track a bunch of times. I was decent at track. I just hated the waiting 8 hours for 30 seconds of your
so
life.
bad.
That just bothered me so much.
Like
so I just couldn't do it. I had to bounce. But I wasn't terrible.
My best 100-meter time was 11:8.
I was terrible at 100 meter.
It's wheels.
My 200 meter time was something.
I was also like
20
157
seconds.
at that time probably. And now I'm like 176, or 78. So I definitely don't think I could do that even close anymore.
It's tough.
Do you remember how many points you averaged in high school basketball?
Yeah, talk about your high school career a little bit.
So high school career was a bit different. I came off the bench. I sat behind a point guard that was all Western New York. It's actually one of my best friends, but man, my job was pretty simple. I got a pretty easy basketball career. I'd come on the court and fire away.
So you're actually like a mini Fred VanVleet.
Yeah, man, it was just shoot. If I was in the game, it was to shoot. Because mind you, I graduated. I probably graduated high school at about 5'4". So
Wow.
yeah, so I wasn't. I grew late. I kind of grew 4 inches that year after high school. But nah, man, my job was pretty simple. Come in the game and I'm shooting.
So you were point guard, shooting guard?
I'll be off ball. I would be off ball just because obviously the point guard that was one of the best in the area wasn't taking the ball out of his hands. And then we had another guy that could actually really dribble the ball. So again, my job was super easy. I'd go in there and guard and shoot.
Were you guys solid?
We were really good. So we had my senior year, we were 16-3. The only games we lost to were against Niagara Falls, which prior to that, nobody in our league had ever beat them. They went 24-0 the previous 12 years. So so we split with them. We knocked them off. And we lost our last game, obviously, of the season to Williamsville North by a point. And then we lost one of our very first games in a showcase, but we were on a heater and we won about, I think it was like 14 straight.
That's sick.
Yeah,
Probably fun time.
It was fun, man. Winning's fun.
Winning is fun.
Winning's fun. Nothing really beats it.
Did you have any recruitment coming out of high school?
Not for basketball. I could have went and did track, but I decided that I wasn't just going to go run because I understood that at that next level, it wasn't going to be, you can't opt out of, running 2 miles for your training. So I kind of knew at the end of, midway through my senior year that, I wasn't going to make money playing basketball. And I guess that's always the ultimate goal of, your career. And especially being my size, I knew, I understood. I didn't know if I was going to grow. I wasn't going to bank on that. I wasn't going to go, I didn't feel it was a waste of my time, but I felt like I could use my time a bit better. So recruiting, no. And then just the head of football. I could have went and played football at University of Rochester, but that was going to be some like preferred walk-on stuff. But track was going to be more what I was going to go do if I wanted to go do anything.
So then if I'm right with your trajectory, so you go from there and you end up going to West Virginia.
So I go to community college first.
Okay.
I go to community college first because ultimately for me what it was is I understood that I wanted to be around sports. I didn't know how. So I wanted to take that year while getting some general credits out of the way so I wouldn't have to pay for them. But I ultimately knew I was going to be leaving. Where I was going, had no idea. What I was going to really be doing, no idea. I just kind of understood that leaving my senior year with, how we went out, we were 16-3. So the brotherhood was incredibly tight. And that feeling always stuck with me. So I was taking that year off to figure out how can I get back into sports and what is that role going to look like? Did I want to be a sport analyst? Did I want to be on television or was it going to be coaching? So kind of took that year and really figured it out. And then we went to West Virginia.
And then so at West Virginia, you were the manager for the basketball team.
Yes.
So how did you get that gig? 'Cause that's like people don't realize like those managers of like high major Division I programs have a ton of responsibility, and it's like a sought after position. It's not like you just like a high school manager where they're looking for someone, you just volunteer and it's like a half-ass. Like that's a full-time job. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, no, it is, and I guess I didn't realize that either as I applied for it. But it was kind of cool, and it was kind of a Hail Mary almost. So one of my good friends, he was at military school, and he got a preferred walk-on spot to go play football at West Virginia. So again, mind you, I always knew I was going to leave. I didn't know what I was going to do. And it almost didn't matter as long as that phone call was perfect. He called me, was like, listen, man, I'm going to West Virginia. And I was like, cool, sign me up. Like, I'll get out there. You know, I had known Bob Huggins and what he had accomplished. So I really just reached out to the assistant coach, Larry Harrison, who was honestly took care of me like a son during those 5 years that I was there. And he told me essentially, as soon as you get to campus, you know, come to my office and we'll see what we can do. So I got pretty lucky. I got pretty lucky in that sense of things after what kids had to do. They had to send in resumes. They had to have 4 or 5 references, and I kind of just sent an email and kind of got lucky, I guess. I guess what you would say, and got a little interview, and there we were.
Mm-hmm. So was it during that time that you realized, like, I kind of want to do this more? I want to be like more of a coaching role?
So I think even at that point, I didn't know that it was going to be a coach. I was really, really intrigued with the idea of always being on TV at that point in time when I was 18, 19. So for me, walking into West Virginia, it was more going to be broadcaster. I was really, really infatuated with that. But I think that very first week when I was in the gym and I actually saw my classes, with that being in the gym and kind of seeing how that worked, just the atmosphere was like, I need to be a part of this. I don't need to be on TV. I don't want to go report any other thing. I kind of want this feeling back because, you know, I already had it. I was a part of a very, very good basketball team. And then you walk into that atmosphere and it's a really good atmosphere. So
Sure.
To me, that really brought that out of like, you know, I want to coach. And I kind of switched my major that week, right to athletic coaching. And that's kind of how we decided that we were going to take this path.
How does like being involved like at the practices and like how does that structure of a practice compare to like what we do here at Medai? Like what are similarities? What are differences?
I don't know how many similarities there are, except for I guess the demand that we kind of have for guys to come in the gym and give it their all. But practices there, man, you're talking about 3-hour practices daily. Like doesn't really matter almost what point in time of the year you're in. If you're lucky, you get a 2.5-hour practice. But they're hard. And I guess that's what I more learned was what kind of work you actually got to put in to be good. And, you know, obviously we never even won a championship. We got to the Sweet 16, but I knew the work and that level to even get there. So practices were intense. And, you know, after practice, you were shooting 100. You had to make 100 free throws. So the life of a manager, I'm there for minimum if I get there about as late-ish as I could and left as fast as I could. It was a 5-hour day. And that's as fast. Some days, man, you're there for literally like 7-8 hours on top of, you know,
Classes.
on top of your classes. So, you know, I didn't know that, you know, that was the commitment, you know, as I got there. I don't know that it would have changed my path, but it was definitely eye-opening of how much goes into it and what you have to do. And, you know, kind of you're the behind-the-scenes guy that, you know, as a student manager, you don't really get that kind of that love or praise unless it's a fellow. Mm-hmm. But no, man, it was awesome. But similarities, I guess, like I had mentioned, just what we ask. I think that, you know, a lot that I've learned from West Virginia, I try to bring into our gym as well. And it kind of really matches up with, you know, how Coach Hack was coached and how he coaches. And we really just ask and demand your effort. Mm-hmm. So I guess that'd be the similarities, but a lot of differences.
Like what? What are some examples of like some like differences?
It's just the time and the commitment. I mean, I think that part's huge. Also, I could sit here and say the facilities.
Yeah,
like
the money that goes into that. Yeah.
When guys got yelled at there, it was super easy. We had 3 different treadmills that you don't get too many times, and mind you, we have 18 guys there as well. So you mess up, man. You just point to the treadmill and you're running. And the cool thing about the treadmill to me was, after you get off, you have to be the first one back in the drill. So there's not a pity of you're tired because you just ran for 45 seconds. You're right back in the drill, which it's pretty intense because you're running on speed 17. So for bigger guys, full out sprint. If you're a nice conditioned guard, man, still a fast jog for 45 seconds, right back into it.
So were you there for all 4 years of your college career? You were in Virginia?
Yep. So we were in West Virginia. I was there for 5 years. I had to take an extra year because freshman year hurt. So when I talk to you guys about, the time commitment of what you guys are doing and the management, it more comes from experience. But yeah, so I was there for 5 years, and even some of the dudes that I got to see play and come into the gym it was awesome. It was an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm.
What is something like you learned from that experience? Just being there in that world class atmosphere as a student, man. What's something that you learn from that and you take away? Not basketball wise, just in your everyday life.
One thing that stuck from me. I believe we lost to Texas my sophomore year, and it was a game that we really shouldn't have lost. At the end, I'm expecting Hugs to kind of lose his mind, and he didn't. And the one thing that he said that sticks to me to this day, and I think about it daily, is that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. And to me, I don't know, at that point in my life, I needed to hear it or however I took it, but to me that was one thing that I just never let go, and it's something I think about all the time. When anything happens to me, I kind of just think of my reaction could make this better or make this really bad. So that was one thing that, among a bunch of other things, but that was one thing that really, really stuck for me, and it's kind of what I need to hear to go forward.
Sure.
So after those 5 years, how do you transition, and what are you doing after you graduated? What was the path?
So after West Virginia, I get a graduate assistant spot at Florida State. That was 2018 and 19. So it was a fun year to be in the ACC. That was when Duke had Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, and Cam Reddish. We ended up playing them 3 times. Didn't get them once. Had an opportunity at our house. Cam Reddish hits a buzzer beater with a second left. It killed my heart. As you're looking around, you're starting to see everybody filter down from the stands because they're going to storm the court. But it was that year, so I ended up going to Florida State, and that was a completely different atmosphere. It was a different program. It wasn't like what I was used to. It was more a bit business oriented, which was different for me because, like I had told you guys, why I loved basketball it was a family atmosphere. It was every guy for each other. And Florida State, it had some similar feels, but you could almost feel that guys were almost being groomed for the NBA, and that's what the gym was. I mean, you walk in the gym and there's 4 or 5 5-stars. To where at West Virginia, we didn't have one. So you're dealing with different kind of guys and different kind of situations and just different everything. But I felt that it was more, which isn't a problem. It was just different than what I was used to. But guys were just more geared in the way that it was ran. Practices were way shorter. We'd be in practice for about, a long practice would be 2 hours and 10 minutes. So you're going from 3 hours every day to, you might walk in and practice might be, an hour and a half. But I learned from Leonard Hamilton, I learned a lot of great things. The way that he can communicate with his guys and the way that he can interact with all of his guys and how much love and respect they have for him. It was a different shift of gears. But so I ended up there being a grad assistant for a year, and then after that I came back after a year. Came back and started coaching at my old high school, and that was when I knew immediately I was not going to be doing high school basketball. I couldn't deal with it. I didn't like the idea of not having guys that maybe all were committed to basketball. That was something that I cared deeply about, just because of going from D1 for 6 years and then dropping down to high school. Mm-hmm. That's a change. It's a significant change, and it was good. We had a winning season, but I just knew that wasn't the level that I could be at, and any college was going to be where I needed to more be. And then after that season, I ended up here at Madai.
So did you reach out to Coach Hack, or how did that? Did you know him previously, or?
So I did not. So what I originally did was I had reached out to Coach McDonald, who is the head coach at Damon. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, I was like, man, do you got any? I'll take anything. I just more want to be back in college ball. I don't really need to be paid. I just need to get my foot in the door. I need to be able to put this on my resume for whatever it is. And he texted me back and was like, I don't think I have anything here, but I might have something for you at Madai. Reach out to this guy. This guy being Coach Hack. And so I reached out to Coach Hack, and I was like, listen, man, like, Coach Mack told me to, reach out to you. Here's my resume. Like, I'm kind of down for whatever. Let me know what I got to do. And we had an interview, and, obviously things went pretty well. And that was when I started.
And then this is your third season or second season?
This was my third season.
But your first season, that's like a full-time
Yeah, so this is my first year's full-time forever. So to me, it was a huge box that I had to check, which was awesome. I mean, for me, I knew that you weren't going to become the head coach at Clemson after a couple years of coaching and whatever you put in. So to me, this was a dream come true, and it's something I will never really honestly take for granted.
So what was your initial position here, and then what were you doing? Because you're only here spending way more time here this year than you were in the previous years, just because you have a bigger role, if I'm not mistaken. So your first few years when you come in, what were you doing in that free time of because you come here between 4 and 6, 3 and 7, whatever. So what were you doing in your other time?
So I had to the last 2 years were a bit tricky. I had to ultimately figure out a way to make it work. I had a family, so I couldn't just take, the little money that I was getting from here. I had to do something else to, feed the family. So year one, I owned a moving company. And that kind of got me through the year a little bit during COVID. I was moving appliances to apartment complexes that were renovating. So I'd go rent a truck and go pick up. We'd probably do 5-6 units a day, which every unit had your whole kitchen and then a stacked washer and dryer. So I was doing that during the day, and then I would come to practice. And then last year, I was doing car delivery parts, where I would work at West Terra and I would deliver various car parts to little automotive shops, and that was it. Come to basketball after. So that's kind of what I was doing to make up that void in that time.
And we kind of wanted to get in. Chris has a few questions about the family aspect, which is something that
I was going to do one more thing before I said that, because your first year here, I'm wondering if there was a story you could tell about your biggest screw up, because I'm assuming there was probably a moment where you messed something up and you're like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that, and the lesson you maybe learned from that.
I don't know if it came during my first year. I don't know if it was that, because first year was a little bit weird. My first full year was that COVID year, so we only really had 6 exhibition games, and we really didn't do scouting reports. We really didn't do anything. It was kind of more, lace them up and
play.
go. Yeah. Year 2, so 2 years ago, probably my biggest mess up was complaining about the refs at an early on game, and I guess I didn't comprehend, what my role more was. I'm sitting here calling travels, he traveled, it was a foul. I had got yelled at on the bench for that, and for me, ever since then, I'm a kind of guy that you really only got to tell me once. I mean, and I kind of pick up on things pretty quick, but that would have probably been it, year 2. And again, to me, I look at the mess ups and the mistakes as the little bumps, man. If I can get over it, like I had told you guys, the life is 10%, 90% how you react. I don't take things personally. It is what it is.
For sure.
So then,
yeah. This is a very new territory that we haven't experienced any of our other guests.
Okay, so basically, I was going to ask, how has your perspective on life changed after having kids, and what has it taught you?
Man, perspective on life changed like crazy, and I feel like it was literally like a switch. So, before I had my oldest, Oakland, who is 3, I was 24. I had her at 25. Not running around, but, there's so many more things that I deemed important that kind of weren't. So as she came, the one thing that I always knew that I wanted to do above anything else, one of my biggest personal goals since I was a kid, was I was always going to be a good father. And to me, that just meant being attentive, being there, and giving my child anything that they needed, whenever I could, however I could. So that life changes going straight from college, and you have the ability to go out and do whatever it is that you want, because nobody can tell you yes or no, to it just stopping. And, Saturday is no different than a Monday, and, your sleep gets all messed up. But to me, it just changed for the better. I mean, it was in my head at that point in time, it was scary, because I didn't know how to be a dad. I just knew what my goal was and how I was going to try to get there. But, it happening at the point that it happened at was probably the best thing for me. It kind of kept me straight in line. Like, you have this reminder every single day, almost every single hour.
It's like one of the biggest whys to like just keep.
Yeah. It's just a constant reminder of, you got to kind of do right. You are setting an example. I can't tell, my girls, and I kind of try to keep that with you guys, our athletes, of I can't be a bad example and tell you to do something different than I'm not. So I think that's one of the biggest things that change, is that, you can have this image, or you can think whatever it is you want about yourself, and I'm all good for that. But, when push comes to shove, you really gotta show. You have to show that example, and you have to be that example. And to me, that was really more how it helped me tighten up what I had to do.
That's crazy. Kid.
Telling me, man.
So how does like having a kid? This is something that we're going to get into. But how does having a kid like change how you interact with like us, like the guys, and just like well, how did you word it before when we were going?
I was going to say, I'm assuming it gives you more patience.
Yeah. It definitely gives me a bit more patience, because as funny as you guys are, I'll say that we'll use funny as the word.
We have a very special group this year.
Yeah, we do. I think that just 18 to 22-year-olds are just a very special group, because I was there. But more patience for sure. But I also understand, like, not saying that I compare you guys all to a 3-year-old, but I see when things don't click, and it's just like, for me, it's like a reminder of like, well, you used to do this too. I know, I'm very aware of who I was and the decisions that I made. But yeah, I guess more patience. But for me, it's more like trying to understand that maybe you don't understand. And I think that's a different kind of perspective that I get with, my 2 girls, is like, I can say anything to Oakland and she'll either look at me and understand, or she won't. And I kind of take that into basketball too, to where I understand that, not every high school basketball program runs plays. Every high school basketball program plays man defense. So understanding that and being able to try to work through it and trying to communicate to you guys in a way that you guys understand, I think that's more what it gave me. Like you said, a little bit of patience, but yeah, understanding as well.
For sure. So then back on like the coaching side, is like, what are the behind the scenes of an assistant coach at a college program do?
I don't know how much behind the scenes is. I think it's more of a time commitment thing that you guys may not know, or people may not know.
Maybe not like behind the scenes, but like scouting report, like that type of stuff.
So like when you're watching film and you're doing scouts, it's not like when you're preparing, especially for like the kind of schedule that we had this year, to where, this was new for me as well. Like, even at West Virginia, Florida State, like, we weren't playing Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. So for me, it's like, it gets a bit tricky in the sense of like, you're scouting for one team, but on that Friday game, that Thursday night, I'm finishing the Saturday game. So it's like, that's a bit different in the sense of like, I'm drilling this other team into my head, and then you go play another team. But just, I guess, just the hours that you put in watching film, like, it's really not just a kind of job where you can show up or slack. Like, it shows. If I come back and give you guys a bad scout, that's on me. So I guess like behind the scenes stuff, it's just all the film that you watch, and trying to really articulate things the way that you guys get it, because I can know it as well as I want, but if the players don't understand what it is we're trying to do, it's not really going to work. So on top of that, like, just the recruiting piece, to where behind the scenes, it's like now is kind of a live period. So now you're traveling more to go see different kind of guys, and you're going, all up and down the East Coast. So that you're helping with, fundraising and just trying to bring as much as we can to this program to make it better every single day. And then trying to even, trying to forecast, trying to see like what ideas do we have for next year with what we have right now. What kind of game can you play? So behind the scenes, I mean, a lot of it's kind of right in front of you. I just don't know that some people may not understand the commitment of time. Like, I can get home at, some days I get home at 7:30, and I may have to go do another hour and a half of film. You just kind of really never know. It's more of a time commitment than, more behind the scenes stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
I was going to ask, getting more into like the mind of a college coach, I was going to ask, what are your pet peeves as a coach when you see a player do something? Yeah.
My pet peeves, man, to me, it's more like an effort thing. Like, I more came to grips of understanding that some guys don't understand everything that you're going to say. But I guess the way that I more thought about that is you don't have to understand everything. That'd be pretty hard. But I think that everybody can control, kind of like I tell you guys a lot, the things that you can control, your attitude and your effort. So my biggest pet peeves are when guys walk in the gym and they don't look excited to be here. Or they're not giving their full effort. Those things kind of rub me the wrong way, because I just look at it like you have an incredible opportunity to go do something special every single time that you're out here. And the fact that you want to go ahead and waste one of those days and it could be your last, that bothers me. I think that just your attitude and your effort, man, if those aren't in line, it bothers me to no end.
Sure. We definitely see that in like when we're like break up into like the baseball scrimmage or something like that. It's just always the spiel before every play. It's just like last possession, whatever happened last possession, fuck it. Like now you have an opportunity to get a stop here, and just put in the effort. You don't want to be hang your head like, damn, wish I could have done something. I feel like that's something that you like consistently like kind of like bat into our heads, especially when we're on defense. It's just like, don't leave anything to like
chance.
Not even to chance. It's like you don't want to leave thinking, damn, I could have done better. Damn, I could have put in more effort. Damn, I wish I hustled a little bit more for that rebound or something like that.
Yeah, and just as much basketball as I've seen, and it's not even, compared to other coaches and other guys, it's not a ridiculous amount, but I do understand when you watch these close games, it doesn't come down to that last play. Like, I believe that did you miss a box out one time and they got an offensive rebound and then they scored? It's like, to me, it's those things that kill you. Basketball is just a game of a bunch of small things compiled into one. You got to think about it, man. We've had games where we've had 80 offensive possessions, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
we converted on like 20, 30.
Right, but like you got to think about what goes into every single possession. It's like, all right, if you don't score one possession, nobody's going to ask you to score 80 for 80. But when you start compiling the same mistakes, it's like those come back and hurt you. Mm-hmm. So, when I have these conversations with you guys, and it does get hard because I understand, like, man, it's practice. I get it, but it's like, man, these practices are training you for a moment. And if you don't know how to react in that moment to that moment, you'll never succeed. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm always so big on, that attitude, that effort. Like, the scoreboard doesn't really matter, and it shouldn't. If you're giving me everything that you have and you're laying everything out, you're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what, I ask guys to do.
So what are your future goals with like coaching, maybe outside of coaching, outside of basketball?
So my dream would be to be a Power 5 coach. That's hard. I mean, it's 360 jobs. And I understand that, but I think that if I could land a Power 5 job and be a head coach, that would be my final box to check. And I've also come to realization that if that didn't happen, I'd be okay. Because I never really started for that reason, and not necessarily like the fame or anything, but I love the camaraderie of just being in a gym, whether it's here, whether it's at Duke, whether it's wherever. It's more about the guys that are in the gym and in the program, to where I can make it whatever I want to be. I can make my own happiness with, what's in the gym. So
for sure.
That would be the goal in basketball. But some goal, like a goal that I have outside of basketball is I've been recently like reading into a bit of real estate. So I kind of want to try to separate basketball from that, in the sense that, you know, I don't never want to rely on basketball for money again, just because that's not what it's ever been for me. I don't do it for money. I do it for, you know, the joy and the happiness and being in the gym. So I had recently started, you know, researching real estate, and I'd love to kind of build a portfolio to where it wouldn't matter where I was at, and I'd financially be good and stable to support my family for life.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I also I'm interested in like real estate. I think a lot of people are interested in like real estate. That's definitely a cool.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's not that hard, I guess. If you can do it once, you can do it twice.
Yeah, it's just like a cool kind of like niche thing.
Yeah.
So before we get into like some more stuff outside of basketball, just the last like basketball related question I have
a lot more basketball.
Oh, you have a lot more basketball?
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask like, what are your hobbies and stuff outside of basketball? Before I get there, so you said your goal is to be a Division I coach, head coach, but this for the development team this year. This is kind of like your first head coaching position in a college gym, and more competitive than the high school gym you were in before. So what was that experience like, and how is that different from being the assistant coach, and what have you learned from that this year?
So that experience was awesome, man, and you guys made it awesome, you know, as well. But it was amazing just to know that, you know, as an assistant coach, you kind of always sit there, and it's not that you second guess whatever is going on. It's just you have your own ideas of what, maybe I would have did it this way. Maybe I would have called this play at this point in time. And you always have those thoughts. And I think that's just natural for anybody. You know, some guys like on the bench is like, man, I would have took that shot. Or man, I wouldn't have. I would have passed that. We all have those thoughts. So I think that was the big thing that I've always wanted, you know, whether I was going to fail or succeed in the games. And, you know, we went 2-2, and I can look and like, I made a lot of mistakes. But what I did and what I was always going to stick to was, I'm big on self-reflecting. I truly believe that like I'm the biggest critic that I have. Just because I like to take this approach of like, you know, I got to look in the mirror every single day, and I make it a point to stare myself in the mirror, and if I got to give myself a talk, I'll give myself a talk, as crazy as it is, but who else is going to do it? But I think that's kind of what, you know, this JV program allowed me to do is any mistakes that I had to sit there and live with. I had to sit there and figure out, you know, what happens next time. And those are the things that I think about. I think about, you know, and I don't like to call them mistakes too much. It's just a learning lesson. And I learned from that. And that's what this year gave for me. It allowed me to see the game from, you know, Coach Hack's point of view, where, again, you know, when Sed was sitting next to me, it's like he was probably thinking the same things that I thought. Like, man, I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't have called this play. I wouldn't have did this. So it allowed me to kind of be free and do whatever I wanted. And I understood that, you know, whichever way the cards fell, it was going to be on me. And I live for that. Like, I like those moments. Those don't scare me. I like to think that you rise for those. But it was amazing. It was an amazing experience, and it's just something that I want all the time.
Okay, well, before we move on to the life stuff, I have two more questions about basketball. I was going to ask, how has your perspective of the game changed going from a player to a coach? Like, how do you look at things differently?
I look at it holistically now. I think that, like, when I was a player, it was more like, how do I get my shot? How do I impact the game? And then when you're a coach, it's not about a guy. It's about everything and how everything's going to click and how everything's going to work for the one common goal that we all have. And our one common goal is winning, to where, you know, when I was playing, it's like, all right, cool. If he passes me the ball, I'm definitely shooting. You know, like that. Those are more of my thoughts. Yeah, like you're not really thinking about what the other guy in the other corner is doing. It's like, nope, this thing gets swung to me, I'm shooting. And then you see it from a coach's standpoint, and you can see, you know, you get a chance to look at the whole court, which is tough because you're not always looking at the ball, to where, you know, when I was a player, I'm staring at the ball. Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm on offense, I'm staring at the ball because I need this thing to hit my hands. So I would just more say that you look at the game holistically, and you try to find the best way to be successful, in whichever way that is. So I think that the way that it more changed for me was just trying to put guys in the right situation and trying to understand who can do what and where you can put certain guys to be successful, as opposed to, well, I got to be in this corner because this is where I'm hot from. So I think that's kind of how, like, I just don't think for a guy. You think for the greatest success in a bucket or a stop.
Okay. And then the final basketball question I was going to ask before we move on to your stuff is when you're scouting out a player and you're deciding if they should be a part of this program or not, do you have like a list of stuff that you look for? Like, what are the things you look for in a player before you recruit them here?
I'm super big into character. I watch skill, but I think that's pretty easy to see, especially in today's age where everybody has tape. So I guess depending on whatever it is that you need, if I need a guy that can shoot, I'm going to look at his form. If he's making shots and his form's really wild, I don't know if I want to touch that because I know that he's going to have to come in here and change everything. But I'm big into character. When I talk to guys, I want to get a feel of who they are, because I don't want any guys that are going to be detrimental to the culture that we have. And I'm just so big into culture and being a family that I think that alone takes you so far. It doesn't. I don't look for guys that necessarily are the best ball players. I kind of need a full package of, are you going to take care of your work in the classroom? Are you going to be, an asset to this community that we have? Are you going to, are you going to be a good teammate? Because to me, ultimately, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you can go score 25. I mean, there's a lot of kids in the country that can do that. That doesn't really matter. I need you to come in here and not stand out. I just need you to fit in for a second and fit to the mold that we have. So yeah, man, I'm big into character. Really big into character.
So I wanted to ask, like, what are your hobbies outside of basketball?
Man,
As a kid, like even now, I feel like you also look a lot older than you are, and I feel like you're speaking like very, like you have a lot of life experiences, but like you're only 8 years older than us. Like, that's crazy to think about, that you're only 28. Like, you're 4 years older than Oscar.
Yeah.
Like, which is like at one point probably 3 years when he has early birthday. Like,
maybe
that's crazy to think about.
Nah, it is.
So you still are like a kid, not a kid, but like very young. So like I feel like. So what are your hobbies?
Man, I love to golf. As a newfound hobby, love to golf. Another hobby that I kind of recently picked up over the past, say, 3 years is audiobooks. So even all throughout college, didn't read a book, didn't buy books for any of my classes. It was just like, this is pointless. I'm going to find this information either on a PowerPoint or on the internet. Like, I don't need any of this. But once I kind of figured out how to more use books and the knowledge that was out there, I started to take a liking to it and, listening to more podcasts and trying to more educate myself. But I would really say for right now, man, it's golf and kind of just hanging out with the family and friends.
What's your favorite thing to do with your daughters?
Well, they're a bit different. So for right now, for Oakland, who is 3, she's big into soccer. So I love taking her out in the backyard and kicking around the soccer ball. And whatever athletically she wants to do, I'll do. She wants to throw a ball in the house. It's like, we're throwing balls in the house. You want to kick a ball in the house, we're doing that, just because, she's not going to break anything. She's too little for that yet. But anything athletically she wants to do. She loves to go for walks. She loves to go get ice cream. So, we'll walk and we'll go get ice cream, or we'll go out in the backyard and kick the soccer ball, push her on the swing. And then for Brooklyn, she'll be 6 months and 2 weeks, so she doesn't do too much yet, but she's just starting to realize, like, she has, like, face recognition, so she's now seeing and knowing who I am. So kind of really just holding her and having her stand up and tummy time and all those little fun things. But no, I just kind of love being with the family and just embracing that time, because, as you guys know, man, it's as soon as October 15th comes, it's
Business.
It's business, man, and you don't see them too much. So times now, you just take all you can and try to give it all to them.
Sure. So this is a question that I wanted to, like, it's more of like a story than like it is like basketball, like a question. But I'm just like curious, like, what's like a story that you have, like, from me and Chris, like, throughout the season, or like something that the biggest thing that we improved on, or what we like need to work on and off the court. But mainly just like a story from me and Chris from the season, for the viewers, from the coach's perspective. It's a very different perspective than from other people we've had on before?
I would say I'll start with Chris. One of my favorite moments. One of my favorite moments of the season was actually it was a bit later in the season, maybe January, February, and watching Chris come in and play, you saw that this kid he had skill. Like, it wasn't like he didn't not belong in the gym. It was just, I don't think he's ever seen basketball like this, which is, again, completely understandable. But we were in practice and we called the play, and like our guys do, they cheated the play, and Chris broke off whoever was guarding him, and this happened 2 times in a row. He broke off whoever was guarding him, got to the rim and scored, and I was like, yeah, do that again. And we called the same play, and he did the same exact thing, and to me it was just like, it was like a full circle moment. Like, it was just like, yeah, like, this kid, like, it's not like he doesn't get it. Like, he's got it. He's got it. And just go do it.
Sure.
So that was one of my favorite moments of all year, man, honestly. Just because it was like, yeah, you can do this.
The gym gets so hyped every time because
honestly. And it's like, to
and
me,
he points to the fucking
yeah. And then Max, I mean, just countless times that we've had, shooting groups, I just love your ability to, like, kind of come in and, just want to come in and do better and get better. Like, it's never a question of, like, your effort or your dedication to the game. It's you put that on display. So I guess, like, walking in the gym and challenging Bryce, it's like, that's awesome, because when Bryce was a freshman, that's kind of what he did. He walked in the gym, was like, I'm the best shooter in here, and kind of stole the gym by storm, and that's what it was. And I thought you brought a little bit of that to yourself, and even in the drills that we have, it's like, you're just not scared to really, like, you're not scared to really go lose. You're more really out there trying to get better, and it's something that, again, from a coach's perspective, it's like, you see that, and, like, I recognize that, and it's like, whether the outcome goes your way or not, it's like, to me, it's like, it's bigger than that, because you're not going to win every game, you're not going to make every shot. That's just the reality of this game. So just you having that ability, and you just coming in every single day and wanting to work and truly wanting to get better on your craft is something that I can truly, like, tip my hat to. For the both of you, like, for the both of you, like, Chris walked in campus and gained 35 pounds.
He's on steroids, everybody.
Creatine.
He's on steroids.
We told guys that they had to hit the weight room, and Chris hit the weight room. Chris hit the weight room harder than anybody else.
Chris. The weight room hit Chris. That's awesome. We spent a ton of time together throughout the year, just, like, before practice, after practice, because I was that kid who came in who was hitting shots but had, like, an inconducive form that was working in high school, but high school 3-point line's closer. Defenders are not as lanky. You have more time to shoot, and then kind of realize quickly, like, this might not fly here. And so we spent a lot of time together, and I think that we've made a ton of progress, even from the beginning until now, and then just me by myself, because, like, we're technically not allowed to work together, but just from the end of the season to now, and then hopefully over the summer just continue that.
For sure, and that's something that, it's crucial. It's crucial to your game, and just, for me, it's guys that whoever wants to come in and get better, it's like, I'm always going to be there, and I'm always going to try to get you to the best of your ability. Like I said earlier, like, I'm not in this for kind of anything else but to see the guys that we have in our gym be the best version of them. So, yeah, I mean, for the both of you, man, just keep working.
For sure.
Like, honestly.
For sure. So what is, like, something that me and Chris would, like, need to improve on, maybe on the court or in life? More for Chris in life.
On the court, I mean, I think that just defining of who you actually want to be on a basketball court. I think that a lot of people fall in love with this idea of, you gotta shoot X percentage. You have to make, or you have to be a shooter. You have to do this. I think it's more about finding where you fit in to where you can be the most productive for your team. So I guess, like, my advice would more be, watch more basketball, like, at all levels. I mean, I found myself recently, which is, however, watching, like, a lot of WNBA. It's a way different game, and it's way more technical, and, like, weirdly enough, it's just so much more technical than the guys, like, because they have to sit there and run sets. Nobody's gonna beat anybody with athleticism. Like, it just doesn't happen. So I think, like, in a mix of watching more basketball and then really trying to define of who you want to be, don't walk in a gym and just say, I want to be a better 3-point shooter. I don't know how much that helps because your goal is just so centered on one thing. It should more be, I want to be a shot maker, instead of just I want to shoot from this one spot. And then in life, I think that first of all, man, I got to tip my hats to both of you for even doing this podcast. I told you guys I thought this was awesome. Sure. So I think you guys are pretty good with finding ways to spend your time the correct way. But I guess for both of you, outside, just I don't know, man. Stay afloat. Make sure we don't ride this wave of emotions and this roller coaster, because to me, I kind of look at life as basketball. I tried to compare those two super long time ago, but it's like, man, we're gonna have good days, we're gonna have bad days. And basketball, you're gonna have a good run, you're gonna have a bad run. You may be down at halftime, you may be up at halftime, but that really shouldn't determine how you're gonna come out. It should be the same intensity every single time, and I kind of think that with your day-to-day life, like go attack, go win the classroom, go win that job interview, go win a starting job, go win a rotation, go win something, and I think it's focusing and just understanding that you can't get too high, you can't get too low, just ride it, accept it, and try to get better.
For sure. And then before we wrap it up, it's just, do you have any advice for young hoopers? Maybe your daughters get into basketball in the future, or maybe just a kid who wants to play college basketball, who's in a position like me and Chris, or you were, or not too long ago. Any advice just to maybe what to work on, maybe what to do, maybe who to become in order to reach the level that we're at now?
Yeah, man, don't get away from, for all you young kids, don't get away from the fundamentals. I think that, this wave of basketball that we're seeing where, everybody wants more of a step back three highlight tape as opposed to, not turning the ball over. It's like, focus on your fundamentals and make sure those are crisp. Once you have fundamentals, you can kind of do anything in this game. If you know how to dribble them, you can not turn the ball over because you know how to pass. You can throw a skip pass. You can jump hop. You can play off too. Even defending, it's like you can wall up and not everything has to be a block. Just those kind of things, and knowing where to be on the court. I think that's more what the focus should be. And like I kind of just said, watch more basketball. There's basketball on all the time, and guys are playing at different levels, and girls are playing at just such different levels that, if this is something that you're doing every single day, to me it just makes the most sense to absorb yourself in it. You should be watching more basketball. You shouldn't just watch basketball, when we have film. You should be watching, guys in our league. You should be watching guys in college, guys in Division II. It doesn't have to be every single day, but give time. Give time to watching the game, because you learn a lot by watching. And if you're a basketball player, which you guys are, you can go emulate the moves in the gym. You can, but you have to see them.
For sure.
Because who is going to teach you if it's not going to be you? So you got to give that little leeway and go watch a little bit more basketball.
And then just before we wrap it up, I want to ask a non-basketball related question. So you spent 5 years at West Virginia, one of the biggest party schools in the world. I just want to hear a story about what's that's like outside of basketball. You're there for 4 years. You're affiliated with the basketball program. I just want to hear a story. It doesn't have to be crazy. We can censor any.
Preferably crazy though.
We can censor anything. I just want to hear a story. 'Cause I've heard so much about just the atmosphere of just being there. It's in the middle of nowhere in West Virginia, but it's just that school is that's the area of the entire freaking state. I want to hear a story.
So I'll give you 2 stories. One was a snow day. So the way that West Virginia is built, or Morgantown at least, is the hills are ridiculous. So any snow on the ground, any snow, you can't drive. Like any snow. I'm talking about there's snow and you can still see the pavement. You can't drive. And if you do, you're more than likely going to crash your car, and you can find tons and tons of videos. Mm-hmm. So Morgantown actually got hit with, it was right around Thanksgiving break. Morgantown got hit with 4 inches of snow. And we go, there's this place called Frat Row, where at the top of this hill, all the frat houses are.
Were you in a frat in college?
No. So we go up there, and mind you, if something like this happens, that's the place kind of to be. Because if anybody's doing something, it's them. So we get up there, everybody has their snow stuff on, and, you couldn't even go to Walmart. All the sleds were gone, all the skis, everybody had already hit. Everybody had already did that. So we go up on top of this hill, and people are just sledding down this hill, like this huge street, in the middle of the day, and it kind of runs into night. So what happens is they start bringing out couches. So they start lighting couches on fire. While we're sledding, people are jumping over. Like, they put it in there. They're put in the middle of the street, built a ramp off like some trash cans, and people are
jumping over the couches on fire.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And the cops are trying to get, like, the fire department's trying to get up the street, but they can't. They can't drive, so they're kind of we're standing on the top of a hill looking down at the fire department, and the only thing that they can do is like walk up the hill
and yell. Kind of,
but it's like you kind of can't even tell all these kids to go home because a lot of them live right there. It was pretty crazy. So that was a pretty wild day. And then I believe it was my second fall. Baylor was ranked in football like number 2 or 4 in the country. They come to Morgantown, and the one thing about Morgantown that I will gladly say is like it's such a hard place to win. And I believe like just because of like how it is, it's like there's no professional sports team in West Virginia, so it's like everybody that loves West Virginia University or they like Marshall, and like the fan base are just everywhere you go in West Virginia, it's a flying W. So we beat Baylor like 42 to like 28, 27, something like that. And that was probably one of the craziest in my job. At this point, I'm still pretty young. I don't really understand like where I'm at and what's going on per se. We win, and then again, more couches are on fire. There was.
Is that just a thing in West Virginia to light couches on fire?
Yes, it is.
Is there a significance behind that? Or
I have no idea the significance.
They catch fire usually because they're made of material that's easily flammable? Or
everybody does it. Everybody does. If you go, again, like these frat houses or just random houses, there's 2 streets called like Beverly and McLean. Yeah, couches are in the middle of the street on fire. But that night, the streets were jam-packed, like block party. There had to be like on the street probably like 10,000 kids. So the SWAT team comes, and they have the little pellet guns, and they have like these. It was the first time I ever seen like tear gas bombs. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of just like launching them in the air, trying to clear out the streets. And what ended up happening is there were some kids that were weirdly enough prepared for it. And they had like almost kind of like the same suits as like the SWAT people did. Started throwing them back at the SWAT team, and it was crazy. It was just madness because, you know, once that place kind of gets going, it's like the police force can't do it. I think as of recently they started bringing in like the National Guard to kind of shut some of those events down, and just back then, just back then, like it just wasn't a thing. But you know, things kind of calmed down a bit since.
We gotta take a trip to fucking West Virginia.
Be careful, man. Be careful.
That sounds like, what's the experience like going to like a big school, like as opposed to like coming here? It's like a lot different.
I would say, you know, like again, like I just didn't go to small schools, but I would say from like my experiences here and there, it's like it is easy to get lost, you know, in bigger schools. Like in any of my classes, probably until my junior year, it was like classes got smaller, and even smaller. It was like, you know, 30 kids. But before that, I mean, you're in lecture halls with 400 kids, 500 kids. So if it was a nice day out, man, I'm not going to class. I don't have to go to class. Nobody's gonna know if I was there or not. So I think that was the big difference. And like nobody really knew who you were. People kind of knew who I was because, you know, I'd be wearing West Virginia basketball stuff, but you know, outside of that, I mean, nobody really knew or honestly cared who you were. So I got the class aspect, I guess, was the craziest and most different part about it.
Sure. That's all I got. If you have anything else?
No, I have.
If you don't have anything else you want to say, then.
No, man, I appreciate you guys for having me. This is awesome.
It's episode
24.
Thank you for coming on. We'll be back next time. Go follow TikTok and Instagram. Subscribe.